So a couple shows ago, we answered a question, we got talking about vine okra. You suggested vine okra as a maintenance-free crop, and we've been getting lots of questions and inquiries about it. So I'll let you have the floor.
It's a pretty good little story about vine okra. Now, I just threw that out there because I wanted to get some feedback because I wasn't well versed in vine okra. I knew enough about it to be dangerous, but we've had some feedback and I got some good information I want to share. So the story goes back a few years ago. I was up in the hills of Tennessee, and I'm talking about back in the hills of Jamestown, Tennessee. A friend of mine was raised up in that area, and we was on our way to Ohio, and we stopped in there to spend the night with his grandmother. Now, his grandmother's name was Jeanette, best my memory serves me, and Jeanette was a native mountain woman that ever been one. Lived in an old farmhouse back in the hills. So we got in there, and what we did when we pulled up, Jeanette and her son, Jar, as they called him, now we call him Jerry down here, but she called him Jar, was out there in the garden. And we just marched right on.
They have electricity?
They had electricity. They did have electricity, but it was one of those old school houses. You know what I'm talking about, the front with the front porch on there anyway. Pulled up and got out there, and they was working in the garden, and they had some things trellised out there, and we asked them what they was doing, and Jar, he said he was picking some vine okra. Well, I stood there sort of perplexed because I knew what okra was supposed to look like, and I looked there for a minute. The last thing I wanted to do was call them out and tell them that wasn't okra, so I kept my mouth shut. And Miss Jeanette went on to tell us a little bit about it, and she said she was going to cook us some for supper. Well, the longer I stood there and searched that plant over, because I'm telling you, I was confused. Mm-hmm. I knew in my mind what that was. That was a loofah plant. Mm-hmm. I didn't say nothing to nobody. So that night, she fried us some vine okra. And we got some seeds from them and brought it back home. When I got back home, I started doing some research, and I actually wrote a blog post a few years ago about this. I knew it was a loofah. Of course, Miss Jeanette couldn't give me very little information on it. Evidently, years ago, somebody had passed through there and gave them some of these seeds. And she didn't know, she just knew they'd been growing it forever, and it was okra to them. It was vine okra is what she called it. So I got back home and started doing some research. I knew it was loofah, and I couldn't find very little on the internet about it. So I just kind of left it go. We grew it for a year or two, and I kind of let it go. And it resurged on me about a year ago, and I started doing some more. And that's the reason I wanted to mention it on the show, because we have a lot of different people out there that know about stuff that we may not know about. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're pretty sharp, but by no means do we know everything.
Right.
And we got some feedback, and I understand it a lot better now than I did. So a fellow down in Florida sent me some seeds and a little note. And I tried to contact him, and I couldn't contact him back. And then Ben out of Oklahoma. Ben sent me a long letter with his phone number, and he sent me some samples. And I called Ben Friday night, and we probably had a good hour conversation. Guy was very sharp, and he had been growing this okra, this vine okra, for a few years now, and he had done a lot of work with selections on it and making sure that he had what he wanted to have. And he explained to me what it was. So vine okra is a loofah, but is a particular type of loofah. And I didn't understand this because I have grown loofah years ago. Loofah is a gourd that will grow for the sponge. And I've grown that 3 or 4 years. But this particular is real similar to that, but it is what they call a ridge gourd loofah. And it has little ridges on there, and it doesn't get near as big as what the sponge loofah get, which is a smooth-sided loofah.
So this ain't the same type of gourd you wash your rear end with?
No, sir.
Unless you got a real small rear end.
Yeah, hiney, as some people say. I did not understand that, but I understand it now that these are ridged, and I remember that back when she cooked them, they were ridged. So a sponge gourd is real smooth on the outside. So what they do is they grow these real small, and they cut them up just like real thin, like you would okra. Fry them just exactly like you do okra. We put cornmeal on okra. Some people put flour. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter. You do it the same way. And he explained to me this, that it grows all summer long, and when it seems to be when the days start getting a little shorter or late in the summer is when they start putting on fruit. Now, we all know gourds have a very aggressive vine, and they grow a lot of big vine, and then they start putting on the gourds, and these are pretty much the same way. But I remember when I used to grow the loofah, It was pretty much the same way. It was like in late August or September is when it started putting on the loofah.
So is this right here, it's a continual harvest thing, or you got a pretty short harvest?
No, pretty much it's not a continual harvest thing. You can harvest it for a while, but those plants grow for a long time and really put on a lot of vine before they start putting on fruit.
Okay.
Now I think, and I'm not saying this definitely, but I think what triggers the fruit production is a shortening of daylight hours, would be my guess. And that's strictly an observation there. So we have this right here. So Ben also sent me some seeds. He sent me a few seeds there, and he's gonna send me some more seeds. But this is really interesting. So he sent me a jar. And what he does is he cuts this vine okra, and he dries it. Because he said he was very interested in producing foods that lasted a long time without refrigeration or things. So he cut these down real thin, and he dries them, and then reconstitutes them with water and uses them for different dishes.
They're pretty good too. Take little dried okra chips.
Surprisingly, it does taste a lot like regular okra to me. Now that Miss Jeanette fried for us, now I could tell it wasn't my okra, but I knew it was real similar.
You didn't want to tell Jar.
I didn't want to mess with Jerry. Jerry was straight mountain man.
Yeah, tough.
By the way, I slept that night in Jerry's mobile home, because that's where I had to sleep, because Miss Jeanette didn't have another bed. So they stuck me down there in Jerry's mobile home. I went down there to Jerry's house. Jerry ain't said one word to me. I just went on there and got to bed. That morning I got up and left. Me and Jerry didn't speak.
Did he talk to everybody
He
else?
talked to some other people, but he never said to me. So I was, anyhow, I made it through it. But I can promise you, come daylight, Greg's honey was out at the mobile home and back up there in the truck waiting to go on.
Jerry sensed that you wasn't real mountain man, and he wasn't willing to let you in on what he had going on, maybe.
And they were also canning green beans when we was up there, and they was doing that outside on a fish cooker, which come to find out a lot of people do that. We don't, but a lot of people do can outside on a fish cooker. So that's kind of my update on the vine okra.
Them seeds right there, they almost look like watermelon seeds.
Yeah, and the difference, Ben told me about those seeds where they're a rough type seed, and the smooth skin loofah is a smooth seed. That's the way you can tell the difference in the two different types of loofah. Also, evidently this has got a Chinese or an Asian background to it, and that's where we where we think it came from. There's very little on the internet about how I did find a little bit. You can go to some of these Asian garden sites and you can find out a little bit. Now, it goes by several different names, which would be ridge gourd, Chinese gourd, trellising okra, vine okra. So all that, we're pretty sure means the same exact plant. Some people call it sweet loofah. But evidently they use it in a lot of Asian dishes. Interesting, I'm gonna grow some more of it. And hopefully we'll have some seeds to offer. But there's a little, if you're interested in trying something different, this is a good one here. And one thing Ben told me that I already knew, this plant here really grows well in hot weather and high humidity.
So it'd be a good thing to plant in the summer when you can't really grow nothing else.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd recommend it for Maine or Vermont or really short growing seasons, but here in the South or the Southwest, I think anybody could have success with this.
Good. Maybe we can get some going. We can offer somebody else. Everybody else can give it a little try.
Yeah.
Real good stuff there on the vine okra. If y'all have any more questions, or if any of you have any experience with it, anything else we need to know about it, definitely put that in the comments.
Or if you can add some more to what I said, I mean, we'd love to know more about it. If you got more information, now Ben was pretty sharp on it, I'll be honest with you. But if you got more information, by all means, share it with us.
All right. With that being said, we'll introduce ourselves here. Everybody, this is our weekly row by row garden show. We're glad to have you with us tonight. I'm Travis.
And I'm Greg.
And we've got a really good show planned tonight. We're going to talk about pest control, organic, kind of all natural pest control, what we are practicing currently in our gardens, what products we use, and what our kind of rotation is on that. So really good stuff coming. Before we get to that, I mentioned last week on the show that we was going to give away a bunch of stuff if we got to 100,000 subscribers by this Saturday, by the end of the day Saturday, which is my birthday. And it's going to be close. unless we get a big run, I don't know that we're going to get there. Now, we had a lot of people tell us what their favorite episode was and why, and I really enjoyed reading through those comments there. Now, I ain't saying we can't get to 100,000. We're at probably 94 right now, something like that.
So you 6,000 short.
But it's gonna be tough.
Yeah.
It's gonna be tough. Now here's the way we can get there. Okay, now we usually have anywhere from, it can vary depending on the topic, anywhere from 5,000 to 20,000 people watch this show within the first few days that it airs. Okay, let's just say 5,000 on the short end. If everybody who watches the show can just get 10, everybody knows 10 people. If everybody that watches the show can get 10 people to subscribe, we might can make it happen. We can give away some stuff. Just an idea. If we don't, it's not a big deal. We'll hit it next week, but I was really looking forward to kind of giving away those gift cards. So if we do get there, we'll do that for sure. One more thing. I got something new coming along on my Instagram side, which is going to roll over to the YouTube side a little bit. So I'm going to start posting our normal videos that we do. We're going to try to start posting those on Instagram, a little feature called IGTV. For those of you who prefer the Instagram over the Facebook or the YouTube, you'll be able to watch them there. They should air around the same time that they air on the other platforms. I'm also starting to do some real just kind of raw, uncut, grab my phone, no fancy audio, just kind of as I'm out in the garden, you know, Saturday and Sunday, I'm out there a good portion of the day, and I always have these, you know, thoughts that just hit
Revelations,
me.
as I call it.
Yeah, just, you know, moments of brilliance just pass through me.
Boom.
And if I don't write them down, I forget about them. So, and it takes a little while to get my camera equipment set up, so I thought, man, I'll just grab my phone and start doing these little quick hitter videos. And we're going to post those on Instagram, and at the end of the week, we're going to patch them all together. And haven't figured out a definite date, but probably on Sundays, we're going to post them to our YouTube channel. So it won't be like a story being told or nothing. It's just going to be boom, 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 kind of quick hitters, and maybe you'll even have a few you throw in there.
Maybe.
So be on the lookout for that within the next week or two, and it should be real interesting. Some kind of just candid, raw footage of us being out there in the garden.
I want to show this right here. So these are and I've talked about them before, Jason over at Cog Hill, which is a great friend of ours.
Oh, is it making already?
If you're not following Jason, the dancing farmer, where you got to do it, man. He's just he's a treat to watch. It's a good pick-me-up. He's a fun guy, and you can just tell they're just nice people. Jason sent us some of these pole beans to try. They've been in his family for years. And they've really done well for us. This is our first good picking here. I need to talk to him. I got a couple questions about him. He actually says the bean turns black in there when they get mature.
Wasn't the flowers like a red color?
Yeah,
they were different color than normal
they
pole
are,
bean
and
flowers.
the vine is so dark green. It's just a beautiful pole bean. It's unlike the ones we have. It's a little different, and it's interesting. They've been really, productive so far. Yeah, look at there. And I got them growing on some Hortonode netting. So anyway, check out Jason over there.
You're gonna have to let some grow out for seed crop.
Exactly. Yep. We're gonna have to do that, and we'll see from there. Whoa! Let me reach up here and get something else.
I got something in that vein too. I want to show you.
Folks, look right there what we have here. This is the first cutting of jambalaya okra. Now, here it is, the end of May, and to have okra coming off at the end of May in our area here is pretty profound. Especially with the cool weather we've had this year. This jambalaya, look how green it is. It'll come in at least a week or 2 weeks before it. What you got right there?
So we'll do a little cook, because my jambalaya, I planted about 2 weeks after you did, so my jambalaya now I'm about to tell you something interesting. I ain't gonna give away all this, because if it stops raining this week, I'm gonna do a little video on this. So, that's it right there. Okay, we got those of you can see mine ain't quite got as big as his, but they coming along
right
now. All right, so I got 4 varieties here. One of my varieties, the Star David, hadn't made a pod yet, but it's close. Now, I've always said that the jambalaya was the first to produce, but I almost wonder if that wasn't a little biased by the transplanting, because my actual first one to produce this year was a cow horn.
Now, did you plant the cowhorn and jambalaya at the same time?
Same time. Now, we'll say these transplants were a lot bigger than these transplants. These transplants were only about this tall. These transplants were about this tall. So these were a little older. Now, on the plant, and I'll show this on the video when we talk about on the plant, this one you can just look at it and tell you got 3 or 4 pods at a time right there. Whereas these, you're gonna pick per plant 1, maybe 2 at a time. You subject to plant, pick 3 or 4 at a time with the jambalaya. That's the big difference in production. But I thought it was interesting how early these produce. And we can look at them here and see the differences between them. So we got cowhorn, we got red burgundy. This is a silver queen and the jambalaya. Now cowhorn.
Look at the difference in the ribbon on that.
Cowhorn is a lot more ridged. Okay.
Ridged. I said ribbed, didn't I?
Yeah. Now this is gonna be a good frying okra right here because it's got those ridges on it, and you can let it get a little longer. I don't know that I would use this as a pickling okra because it's got that hook on it, and it's gonna be hard to get them all in the jars nice and even. This jambalaya is a lot more uniform pod, which makes it an awesome pickling okra.
That red burgundy is a good one too.
Red burgundy is a good one. Now these are short. You can let these get pretty long too. Now the silver queen, which one I haven't grown before, that makes a pretty pod, and that might be a pretty pickling okra right there. This is a more light colored pod, but we'll compare and contrast those plants on my video I do. But I thought it was interesting looking at the different types. And once that Star David starts producing, we can really line them up, might do some taste tests.
Well, and I got one in my garden that we're trialing called Heavy Hitter that we actually don't offer the seed on yet because we want to see how it does before we release it to the public out there, and we're going to see. Now, it was planted a little later than jambalaya, so I can't compare it as far as the maturity because it was probably a good 2 to 3 weeks. I planted it after I did this jambalaya, but it seems to be doing well, and we'll see as it comes along. I'll give some updates on it, on my thoughts.
Now I like eating okra raw, and I tried a little snack of one of these last night compared to one of these, and I think the jambalaya has a little more flavor to it than this cowhorn does. So, but with any variety, there's going to be trade-offs. This you ain't got to pick as often. This you got to pick every other day. You know.
Yeah, my cowhorn, I believe they use it more in the soups and stews out in Louisiana than they do any other variety.
Anyway, my okra trials are going good so far, and on that video I'm going to talk about kind of what I have found look like to be kind of the secret recipe as far as getting your soil right for your okra, fertilizing it and all that. A couple more things I got here. So a few weeks ago, you were fairly charitable towards me, gave me some potatoes, even though you didn't realize that I had grown a good crop of potatoes. Yeah. And I appreciate that charity. And just like you were saying there, we should all help out people that can't grow stuff as well as we can.
Exactly.
And so I know you have a hard time growing big old rutabagas. So I felt bad for you, and I brought you some right here. Now, you won't find them at the store. It look much prettier than that right there.
That is nice.
So I brought you 3 nice rutabagas, and for you to have and make you some mashed bagers or whatever you want to make. Now, I'll tell you a little secret I found on these rutabagas here. The only real fertilizer, the secret recipe for them is that complete organic fertilizer. We got that pelleted hen manure. Once you transplant them, you give them some of that once or twice.
Get out of the way.
Get out of the way. And to be growing rutabagas this late, I'm very happy with that. But they like that complete fertilizer. They'll make a lot of leaves at first. You'll be worried if I'm going to get some roots, and then next thing you know, you go out there and boom.
Yeah, to show you how your taste buds change over the years. When I was a child, and when I was on my early 20s, I could care less about some rutabagas. I wouldn't eat them. I've gotten older, and I got where I like them.
Depends on how you cook them. Now, I remember your mama, when she used to cook them, they make the whole house smell like a toot.
Yep.
And but the ones I've been cooking lately, they don't do that. So I don't know what the big difference was, but I like them mashed.
Mama used to cook them all the time, and I let everybody else eat them because I didn't want to eat them. Speaking of what Mama cooked a lot of fried chicken. And I was the youngest out of the bunch, and I didn't even know there was no such thing as white meat till I was grown and gone. I thought everything was dark meat because that's all I got was leftovers. I got the wings and neck bone.
Yeah.
I never eat a breast till I was grown. My older brother and my daddy always got the white meat, and then we had to get neck bone and chew on those legs and thighs. To this day, I don't care for white meat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how bad it was.
That's rough. Another thing I know you have trouble with is growing peppers. I've been out there, seen your pepper plot, and it don't look real good. And
Well, it looks so good.
sometimes
I'm a little late, but I thought I was
sometimes you don't get them trellised, and you let your weeds get up in there. So I grew some peppers for you, and
I sure hope you make a tomato and corn crop.
I got something for you there now. My sweet corn's tasseling out.
Easy now, easy.
I went and saw yours now. Yours is tasseling a lot shorter than mine is now.
Well, I'm growing corn, not corn stalks. Keep that in mind, okay?
Mine's about 8 foot tall. Anyway, I brought you some nice bell peppers there. You can have.
Well, thank you. Them are nice. What store did you get them from?
I got them from Trav's Garden Store out there. And now I will say this: with this is them. Just some random OP variety. I don't know what it is that I bought from that nursery. And when I first put these things in the ground, it looked like the disease had jumped all over them and they wasn't gonna make it. And I had to push them hard with fertilizer, and I got them to grow out of it. And they're looking a lot better now.
Yeah, one of the biggest things with growing peppers, most people don't put enough fert to them. You got to feed a pepper plant. You got to have it that dark. Like I won't sit this over here. You got to have it that dark green, like that jambalaya okra is right there.
And you can get some stuff. I've learned this year. You can grow out of some disease if you push them hard enough.
Yep.
Well, I don't know if we'll get to it on today's show, but we need to do another gardening with Greg just to talk about that Algonquin squash out there.
Man, that is some growing stuff. It is. It's been interesting to grow because its growth habit is a bunching type. I mean, it doesn't spread out, so it's a real
semi-bush almost.
But it's a compact plant, so I can see how you could grow it in a tight area. If you didn't have a lot of garden spot and you want to grow winter squash, this possibly could be one for you. And I'm going to tell you, productivity is off the chain. Man, them things have loaded up with fruit. Now, the tasting is what we got to really concentrate on now. So when these things mature out, we really got to do a bricks testing on them, which where we measure the sugar content of the fruit. We got to do that. We got to do a taste test to make sure it's going to be a good fruit to eat. If it is, folks, we may have something for you. Now, I possibly think we're going to have to rename them because I can't pronounce it. And I butchered up every time.
Why don't you just call it owl squash?
Owl squash. I could do that, owl squash.
And then I'll just call it the right name.
O-W-A-L.
Just A-L, like owl.
Owl squash. That's what I'm going to start doing, owl squash. Yeah, anyhow, my owl squash is doing wonderful.
When I went out there, them fruits are bigger than butternuts.
They are. They're doing good. I'm really impressed so far on the owls.
So everything keeps going as planned. We should have a big seed crop of them.
However, I don't care how good it grows, how productive it is. If it ain't good to eat, then that's going to kill it.
That's right.
We got some more work.
We ain't into just growing off the wall stuff just to be growing off the wall.
It's got to prove itself.
It's got to be good groceries. My South Anna butternuts, the ones that are crossed with Seminole, man, it ain't quite as big as that Cherokee tan plot you had, but it's getting there. I hadn't grown Seminoles in a while, and I forgot how, man, those things can just and put a lot of vine out on you. The last thing I want to mention, and I say this jokingly, everybody, don't take this real seriously, is and I was going to go down there earlier this year, and but the virus happened and didn't make it, but I believe I'm going to have to go down there in Mississippi and help Danny grow taters.
Danny having some issues?
Well, he just, a couple varieties. He didn't have as good luck with that red Norland, and just got a few on there. And
the red Norland is supposed to be a heat tolerant potato.
Yeah. I think he's got his own variety. I think he grew off from the red Lesotho that he saved. I don't remember what the origin of it was. They did pretty well from him. But that red Norland, man, compared to a Pontiac, it always, like I said, I got 7 gallons off a 10-foot row. And then on his Yukons, he had a decent Yukon harvest, but he was saying that on every plant he pulled up, you either got 2 real big taters or 3 or 4 small taters. And and something ain't right there, because every one of mine I pulled up, me and Ty was getting 3 or 4 big old taters.
I made a good crop of them.
So I might have to go help Danny on his Yukons a little bit.
I'm sure he would appreciate that.
Yeah, we're gonna plan a trip down there at some point in time, and
you know what we ought to do? We ought to get some T-shirts.
T-shirts, yeah. Everybody's been asking about T-shirts, and the girls have been working on some designs, and I got something going. I got to find the right person that can print them to make them look good. I got some samples coming. We're gonna have some row by row T-shirts with this logo on them, and several other designs.
What else would be good? Some rain gauges.
Rain gauges, yeah. If you hadn't seen that, go to Facebook or Instagram, and I got a good little comparison there between 2 rain gauges.
Well, you know what? Every garden needs a rain gauge in this garden. Okay.
That's right. That's right.
Now, a buddy of mine, you know, when we get older, we love to talk about how much rain we got. That's the first thing.
I ain't even 35, and I like to talk about it.
Yeah, first thing when you see somebody, how much rain did you get last night? Well, I had a buddy, a couple of buddies that lived next to one another on the other side of town, and this one buddy, he always liked to cut up. So every time we got a rain, he'd get up early in the morning. He'd sneak down there and fill the other guy's rain gauge up.
Uh-oh.
So every time he go to town, they'd say, well, how much you get? And he always had twice or 3 times more than everybody else was. And that went on for a long time. Got the biggest kick out of it. We'd say, how much rain did you get? And no, he got more than what he's supposed to. He finally caught on, but it took him a while. But that was a good one.
So what I learned, you get you several different kind of rain gauges out there. Then you got even more to talk about.
Oh, yeah. Well, I got 3 tenths on the west end of my house, and the east end of my house, I can get about a ½ inch.
That's right. That's right. All right. Last thing, I done got new varieties here. We always like to give you some new varieties every week. And this week, I'm talking about pumpkins. We just added quite a few varieties of powdery mildew resistant pumpkins. And down here, it's almost a necessity, but even if you're growing up north, PM resistant pumpkins, I tell you, are the way to go. And I got 3 real good varieties.
PM stands for powdery mildew.
Powdery mildew.
But now downy mildew is just as bad, if not worse.
It is.
I think it's probably worse for us than.
But it's hard to find downy mildew resistant varieties. Hard to find these too, but these are good ones. So we got this ½ pint here, which is a nice little ½ pound mini jack-o'-lantern. This one's actually an AAS winner. And
that's all American selection.
Yeah, so it's a mini jack-o'-lantern, real good little pumpkin variety there. Then if you want a bigger one, got one. This one's going to come in around 22, 25 pounds, called Mustang PMR.
And the Mustang's like 100-day pumpkin, so if we planted it now, you could still pull it off. Yeah, you can still pull some of these off in our area, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And if you're north of us, you certainly could pull them off. And then the last one here, and this is, if you grow pumpkins or sell pumpkins, these are your money makers, these big white pumpkins. Now, we got one called Super Moon, which is a more eaten kind. This is straight jack-o'-lantern called New Moon. And we had some of these out at the expo several years ago when we did a pumpkin display. But these things can get anywhere from 45 to sometimes 75 pounds. Yep. And you grow these out, you can easily get $20, $30 a pumpkin off these things. Yep. So good pumpkin varieties there. All right. So today we're going to be talking about pest control, which is a hot topic right now as it's starting to warm up a little bit. You know, it's getting that time where you got to watch out. That bear gets you. You stay out there all day in the garden. And then pests start breeding fast. I've noticed some eggs on my squash and stuff like this. So it's that time. We like to go ahead and start before now, but it's that time you need to be proactive. You need to be, if you know you're going to have some problems. If you had some problems last year, you're probably going to have problems this year. And so we want to talk about our particular pest control program. My program, your program, our gardens are about 20 miles from one another, or 20 minutes. And so we even though we're in the same county, we deal with some different pest pressures ourselves. First thing I want to mention is just kind of before I give out my program, which insects and diseases I struggle with most, that I have the most problem with. And everybody's going to be different out there. And you probably want to kind of mold your program based on what you have issues with. So, number one for me, squash bugs. Have to be real careful with squash bugs. I get them on summer squash, and I can get them on winter squash. They lay eggs on the leaves. They can get down there at the base of the plant and root around and just eat up those stems. Rotation helps a good bit. Not trying to grow squash in August and September helps a bit, but squash bugs are a bad one for me. You have squash bug issues as well?
Somewhat. I did have them a little earlier this year than I normally do. Keeping a good, clean garden, just like you to keep inside of your house, is one of the best strategies for squash bugs. Think about it that way. Keep everything clean. When it starts going bad, clean it up, get it out of the way, move on to something else. If you got weeds and stuff growing out there, keep them cut down, worked in, keep your nice cover crop going. Keep everything nice and tidy, and that will help a lot with your squash bug, as long with other insects.
Second one I have a big issue with, and we're talking this time of year, we're not talking really fall, is pickle worms. And I know you can get pickle worms too.
Yeah.
You get these on your summer squash and your cukes. They don't really get on winter squash because the skin's harder. They can't bore in there. But the pickle worms, and that's one of the things you got to be proactive, because you get one pickle worm or see one hole in a squash, it's like finding one rat in your house. You probably got more than one.
Oh, yeah.
And you can't kill them once they get inside the fruit. So if you know you're going to have pickle worms, you got to be treating them early. As far as nightshades go, tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants, we have issues with those leaf-footed bugs. Those big black leaf-footed bugs, and they don't really start on until probably June, July when it gets hot. But those things can cause some problems. And if you get that pretty tomato that's got them little yellow spots on it, that's them leaf-footed bugs been eating.
Yeah, we used to call it stink bug damage, which is they in the same family.
Right.
Another problem we have with tomato slope is worms. I have a little bit of problems every now and then with worms getting in my tomatoes. Not a lot, but a little bit.
I had a huge issue with it. And then the last one, which we can control pretty easily, but we always have to be aware of it, is the corn earworm, because we can get them. So those are my big four: squash bugs, pickle worms, leaf-footed bugs, and corn earworms. On the disease side, we're going to deal with powdery mildew, we're going to deal with downy mildew, and then we're going to deal with numerous different tomato viruses, which I won't go through all of them, but your leaf curl virus, your tomato spotted wilt virus, tobacco mosaic virus, all that good stuff.
Now, tomatoes, one of the issues that I've had about the last few years is blight. Blight has just jumped on me, and I've had problems with that. And I've worked it down, they're looking better, but I did notice I just have just a little bit of problem out there right now, but I'm gonna work my way through it. A lot of times I can grow my way out of it, along with some good spray program.
My tomatoes are over the top of my 4-foot post.
I'm growing tomatoes, not tomato vines.
Mine are loaded.
Okay, we'll see.
We'll see, you know.
We'll see.
Spray and schedule before I get into the actual products. And this is for anybody out there. I pick a day of the week. It's usually Sundays is my spray day. And I'm going to spray right at dark or after dark. I got a big light on a pole out there by my garden, and I can still see past dark, and sometimes that's when I like to spray. But it's right at dark or after dark is when I like to spray.
I also like to spray late in the afternoon. A lot of times Monday or Fridays is mine.
But pick a day, that way you make sure you do it once a week. Now you can spray twice a week if things get bad. At this point, I've only had to do once a week so far. And as far as, this is something we don't talk about a lot, but I've been kind of keeping an eye on this lately, how much of the mix, and we'll talk about mixing rates in a minute, how much of the total spray you're putting out. And I'm growing on about 1/4 acre, and if I spray everything real good, coverage is key with these organic natural products. If I spray everything real good, I'll put out 8 gallons over my 1/4 acre.
A lot of people have this question here, well, when am I supposed to spray and how much we're talking in individual plants. Mm-hmm. So with any kind of insecticide, underside of the leaf is the most important coverage there, because that's where your insects harbor at, especially your soft-bodied insects.
Where they hide.
They hide. They love underneath there. That's where they're going to lay the eggs at. That's where they have the parties at, is underneath there. So you got to get underneath there to kill them. And coverage is key, because you got to get them on there with these neems and these pyrethrins and things like that. So I make sure that when I spray, I take my nozzle and put it down at the base of the plant, and I spray back up, and I get real good coverage. Then I come back over the top. Now the point at which you're supposed to stop spraying is at what they call the point of runoff. When you start seeing that pesticide run off, that plant start drip off, then you're wasting your time in your spray after that, so cut it off. Point of runoff, it starts dripping off, move on to the next plant.
Right. And I meant to bring it. I actually had it in the truck, but I forgot it. To show you what I'm using. Now we sell a nice little made in the USA pump sprayer. I think we're out currently, but hopefully we'll get some more of those soon. I use a backpack sprayer made by the same company, and it's heavy duty. It's not cheap.
No, that thing was actually developed for the pest control industry. It is a little pricey, and they sent us a couple to try.
Now, it is awesome. It's got a nice little removable filter on the one. It pumps up easy. It atomizes or mists the spray really, really nice. And I meant to bring it to show it to everybody. And we can get those. We can start carrying them if that's something y'all be interested with. You know, we don't want to carry them if there's no demand for them. But some of you bigger farmers out there, if you want a good backpack sprayer that's going to last you 5-10 years, you know, let us know. We can definitely add those.
Yeah, the standard is the solo sprayer, backpack sprayer. Everybody uses those. They're sold on Amazon. They're fairly inexpensive. You can get one around $100. This is a lot better sprayer than that as far as quality goes.
The hose, the wand, everything.
However, it does cost more.
Right.
So,
if you're interested in those, let us know. We can see about getting those. All right, let's get into specific programs. So I'm gonna go over my program real quick, and then you can talk about your program. So I've got two different, excuse me. I've got two different combinations I use. So one week I'll spray one of these combinations, and next week I'll spray the next. So, and all these products we carry, folks, are concentrated. So you're only mixing anywhere from 1 to 2 ounces per gallon. So you can get quite a few applications out of these. And we sell most of these in gallons as well. Okay, let's start off in week 1. Week 1, and I'm always, a lot of people ask, can I mix an insecticide and a fungicide? Not only can you do it, you should be doing it.
I'm not aware of any of these chemicals that we sell that have any problems with mixing. You can mix them all together or whatever. I'm not aware of any of them have any problems.
Any volatility issues or anything like that.
Yeah.
So week 1, I'm going to spray spinosad, which is this Monterey garden insect spray. That's going to take care of my worms, a lot of your crawling, flying insects, stuff like that. It's real comprehensive. And then I'm going to use this liquid copper fungicide, which is a real comprehensive fungicide out there. Now, I will say, when mixing these two, because a lot of times when I'm mixing these, I'll just measure everything in one little jug and then pour it in my tank. You don't want to do that with these two. You want to dissolve this in your tank, then dissolve this in your tank. For some reason, these two kind of coagulate together.
That's a common thing with the copper products.
So you just mix them in the tank separately and they'll be fine. Chase it with plenty of water. That's week 1. Week 2, I'm going to come in there with these 3, make sure everybody can see them. So I'm going to have the BT, which is going to take care of my worms, my moth, larvae, caterpillars, all that good stuff. I'm going to have the takedown, some pyrethrin in there. That's going to do really good at taking care of any of that squash bug larvae, eggs, anything. And then my fungicide I'm going to use is this complete disease control, which is a nice organic, comprehensive fungicide. So week 1, this guy, or one Sunday night, this guy, the next Sunday night, this combination here, and I'll just go back and forth. And this is based or designed around what pressures I have, and I know kind of what pressures I have. If you've gardened more than a couple years, you know what insect or disease problems you're going to have. And so this particular program is based around that, and so far it's working really, really well. That's not to say come August I ain't gonna have squash bugs everywhere and I'll quit growing squash, but for right now it's working pretty well for me.
Yeah, everybody's gonna have to come massage this around what works for them.
Yeah, and we have more products than this, and I try to keep it simple. You know, you want a good mix of products so you don't get any resistance build up, but you also don't want to be spraying 10 different things every other week. So that is my program. Now for you.
Yes, sir. Let me lay mine out.
Okay.
This is pretty much what I'm on at the moment. Now I can move off from this and change a little later on because I'll have some issues in another couple of weeks that I hadn't had before. I'm using the liquid cop and the garden, no, hold on just a minute. Yeah, the garden insect spray right here together.
So just like I'm doing.
Just like you're doing, but I'm doing it for different reasons.
Okay.
Okay, the liquid cop works really good on early blight and late blight as a preventative. It has a little bit of curative, but not a whole lot, but it works really good on preventative on my tomatoes and my peppers for late and early blight. Beans, I know that I got a history of that. I like to keep this copper on there, and I have not found anything that works as good on it as far as preventing it as the copper products does. So that's very important for me for that. Now the garden insect spray that I'm mixing here with is a spinosad, and we know spinosad works great, and it works pretty much broad spectrum on a lot of different insects, including worms. Now, let's talk about this spinosad for just a second. We have a lot of people ask us through email, messenger, or whatever, well, how much am I supposed to mix and how often and am I supposed to spray? Well, the quick, correct answer to that is whatever the label says. Georgia is what we call a label law state, and a lot of states out there are the same way. What that means is, by law, the instructions that have to be followed are on that pesticide label. So the label overrides anything anybody tells you. And if you talk to an extension agent anywhere, and that's going to be the first thing they tell you is follow up the label. So when we tell you to read that label, we're not trying to be short with you or give you a short answer. It is a fact that you got to follow that label. That is the instructions that you have to follow. And we can't give you recommendations beyond that because that's simple it to go by. Most of these right here have a 7 to 14 day retreat label on there. I'm almost positive most of these right here are 7 day. So I'm on a 7 day rotation right now. Just like Travis goes, I spray on a certain day of the week. It makes it simple for me, and that's what I do. So always read that label, follow that label directions, and go from there. Now, an interesting side fact for you is this spinosad is not labeled to spray on broccoli or any cold crops in the state of Georgia. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
For some reason or other, and I don't know why, but there again, it's on the label, so it is the law. You can use it on in any other state but the state of Georgia. It's not labeled to spray on broccoli, maybe beets on there, but beets was kind of unusual. Most of them were your leafy vegetables. It is not, and I've done it before. I'm not saying I hadn't, but it's not labeled. It's not labeled to spray on there. So there again, you know, we got a label on that. This, as far as the organic, is the broadest spectrum and probably the best organic insecticide out there, in my opinion. So,
and a lot of people want to ask, is this going to hurt my beneficials, going to hurt my pollinators? If you spray it responsibly, spray it late in the evenings, you'll be fine. I got a hive of bees right there by my garden, and I spray it late in the evenings when the bees is going to bed. You won't have any issues as long as you do it responsibly. Back to the label thing real quick. All these products have peel-off labels on the back, lots of detailed instructions. Also on the product pages on our website, if you scroll to the very bottom, you'll see a tab that says product documents, and you can look at a digital PDF version of the label.
Yeah, and I do that all the time because my label may get wet or destroyed. I always pull it right back up. I do it on my phone. I pull that label up on my phone and read it. My next week I go with the Complete Disease Control, which is a good protective fungicide, and this works really good for some of my leaf spots. And I go with the fruit tree spray as my insecticide. Now this Complete Disease Control also works well as a drench fungicide for soil-borne diseases. It will actually colonize on the root system of the plant and offer a lot of protection.
Shane, you can inject it?
You can inject it. You can inject it. I've done it as a soil drench before, which I think is probably the best way to do it. And you can also do it as a leaf spray. We do that all the time. It is a great one. It came out a few years ago. Just give you a little backstory here. When they first come out with this active ingredient, it must have been in the late 80s. And I was listening to NPR one day, and I listened to the doctor, the PhD that developed this product, and it was interesting. It's also used a lot in the commercial agricultural because it doesn't have very little, if any, resistance to it. So it's used as a good rotation out there because they don't have to worry about resistance or build up to it as they do some of the synthetic fungicides.
Now, hold on. You'll see a lot of people refer to a fungicide called Serenade.
Which is a real similar strain.
Which is a real similar strain, and we actually asked our our Monterey rep about it, and he said that they like this particular bacteria better than the one that's in the Serenade. But it almost does exactly the same thing.
Yeah,
so for those of you who used to using Serenade, this right here is going to do the same thing for you.
Okay, here's another product that I like a lot, and this is a little bit of a misnomer. This is called fruit tree spray. Well, when you say fruit tree spray, first thing you think of is the only thing I can spread on is fruit trees.
Right, correct.
That's incorrect. This is a combination product of pyrethrin and neem oil. So this has both of them in there, and it has a synergistic effect. A lot of times when we take these two insecticides... Synergistic.
Yeah.
I was close.
You was.
I was close. Anyhow, it has an effect where it makes both of them better when you mix two chemicals together. And I think that's what we get with this fruit tree spray. It works wonderful on vegetables, so don't let the fruit tree part scare you. You get several different modes of action there with the neem. The neem also has some disease properties to it. Will help with that. So you get a little bit of disease with this package of these two insecticides on there. You got contacts, you got stomach poisons, you got about 3 or 4 different modes of action with this fruit tree spray. So I really like this product. Now, if you will see, I'm not using BT at the moment. My worm pressure has not got high enough for me to do that. This spinosad and also this neem works on worms too. So
yeah,
later on I'll switch up and start using some BT.
Your corn earworms,
yep.
This spinosad is the way to go. Yeah, this fruit tree spray, now because with my program I was just specifically talking about my vegetables or my annuals. I use this stuff right here on my fig trees about once a month. I'll go out there and soak them down good with that, and that they seem to appreciate it.
A good, safe product, however, always spray late in the afternoon.
Late in the afternoon.
I like late in the afternoon. Now, everybody tells you can spray early morning or late afternoon. That's when your bees are less active. My thought, and I've watched this a lot, I think the bees are less active late in the afternoon. In the early morning, they get pretty active to me pretty quick.
Yeah, they wide open at my house.
So I think late in the afternoon is the ideal time to spray, not to worry about.
I don't even like to pick squash first thing in the morning because I like to leave my bees alone do their thing. So I'll pick my squash and then I'll spray. And kind of, leave everybody alone there. So that's our program. You can mold your own program. Oh, one more thing about the spraying in late evenings. Some of these things, we didn't mention neem oil, but this has neem oil in it. Any of your products, hoarder oil, neem oil, any products have oils in them. If you spray them early in the morning and it strikes off hot later that day, you're going to have some burnt plants out there.
Or if you spray in the middle of the day when it is hot, you're going to have some burnt plants. So that's another reason to spray late in the afternoon when it's nice and cool.
Right. Some of these do stick better than others. I try not to spray if I know I'm going to get a rain shower within the next few hours. This liquid cop sticks really, really good. You can spray it, and even if it does rain a little bit, you'll be all right. So those are our programs.
Yes, sir.
We got going, and that doesn't say, like you mentioned, that doesn't mean that particular program couldn't evolve or change in the next month or two.
Mine will. Yeah, mine.
But the program I've been using is what I've been using for about the last 2 months, and it's working good for me so far. And it could be a little different from year to year, but that's what I've been successful with so far. Now,
and you feel good about it. These organic products, or you feel good about it. The copper product is not labeled as organic. It is a natural product. So
it's the mildest, best fungicide you're gonna find.
That's pretty good. Mildest, best.
So if you want something super powerful, fungicide, it's gonna be pretty nasty stuff. Copper's pretty mild, and it's really comprehensive.
And it works great.
Yeah. Now, we don't have any questions from last week because everybody was putting in the entries for the big giveaway. So y'all make sure, tell 10 of your friends to subscribe to the channel so we can try to hit that mark there. And we hope you enjoyed tonight's show. If you have any other questions about pest control products or treating pests or anything like that, put them in the comments below. One more thing before we sign off, because I know somebody's going to ask this. Can you address 7 real quick? Because we get this question a lot. People say, can I use 7? Should I be using 7?
Yeah, 7 Dust is widely used. It's widely available in all your big box stores. Folks, I've been in this business, pesticides, a long time. And I can tell you, there's nothing out there that's more toxic to your bees, to your wasps, to any of your bees than 7 is. Whether you use 7 formulation as a dust or as a liquid. Now, does it work wonderful? Absolutely, it works wonderful. But back in the day, if we had to kill a hive of bees, our choice of chemical was 7. It is the most toxic to any type.
You talking about bees got in somebody's house or
I
something?
don't care where they was at. If we needed to get rid of them, wasps, and we know wasps eat aphids, because wasps is sort of, we don't know if we view them as beneficial or not, but they sting, but they do eat a lot of aphids, so I guess they are classified as beneficial. 7 dust is broad spectrum, it'll kill just about anything. It works great if you're just trying to annihilate an insect or goods. However, my biggest problem with it is it will kill a bee in a heartbeat, and it don't make no difference what kind of bee it is.
And there's a little bit of a wait time on when you can spray 7 and when you can eat the food or when you're supposed to. With all these products we talked about, it's usually just a day or so after. So if you got to use 7, or if you want to use it, or if you like using it, that's fine. Just be aware.
Yep, absolutely. Be aware of what you're dealing with there, because it will wipe them out. And if you got a hive of honeybees, well, you want to be really careful about it.
All right, good stuff there. Any more questions, y'all let us know. And we hope you enjoyed tonight's show. And if you did, check out these other 2 videos right here. I think you'll really enjoy those as well. We'll see you guys next time.
Take care.